Now it is 7:51, so I might as well start since you have started recording. I can tell you the story of Christ. Okay. Now the first thing that we notice is that Krishna and Christ both are avatars. Okay. They are admitted as avatars. They had a huge amount of work to do in the physical world and they did it absolutely perfectly. Christ and Krishna. Second point is look at the names. Christ. K and R, Kara, okay. And look at Krishna's name also, Kara, okay. This is the first similarity. The first similarity, both are avatars and both are spiritual. This is second. The second point, the first. The second point is both the names are beginning with Kara, okay. Then the third thing is that they look at the story of their birth, okay. Where is Christ born? Christ is born, supposed to be born in a manger. You know, a manger is a cattle shed where cows are there and cows are being fed. Good morning, Yasmin.
Bonjour.
Bonjour, Yasmin. I am telling them the story of Christ and Krishna and the similarities between them, okay? Very quickly, I will just say again, both are avatars, both are spiritual giants, and both have a name. The second point of resemblance is that both are beginning with Kra, okay? Christ and Krishna. This is not to be considered as a coincidence because I'll tell you all the other similarities. Very interesting. Okay. Where is Christ born? He is born in the humblest of places. He is born in a manger. A manger is a place where hay is put for the cattle. Okay. So obviously it's the most. He is not born in a palace with a silken bed. He is not, and there are 100 people attending to him. No, he is not that at all. He is born in a manger, in the most humblest and the poorest of circumstances. This is symbolic, and I'll tell you the symbol when we come to Krishna. Okay, and but he is recognized that he is the he is a holy descent. Okay, because the three men of the east, if you remember, they came from, they saw a star and they came to acknowledge the birth of God in the world. Okay, the three men from the east, the three wise men, they were bearing gifts. One was myrrh, the other was, I think, gold or something. You'll have to check the internet to see. And the third one was something else. Okay, myrrh is MYRHH, okay, or MYRRH perhaps. It's a sort of plant or something like that. Okay, so they came with these gifts and they realized that God had come down to earth. Okay, so this is the first, the birth of Christ in the humblest of places. This is symbolic, and when we see Krishna's birth, it becomes even more clear what the symbol is. Okay, now take Krishna's birth. Where was he born? He was born in the middle of a prison. Okay, and what does a prison mean? No freedom at all. You are under bars. You are and that also is the humblest of places, the most insignificant and the most tyrannical. You are absolutely imprisoned. Okay? And what is the condition outside? He is born in the prison at midnight, the darkest hour. And also, the other symbol is that there is a storm raging outside. So here Krishna is born in a prison and in a place where the physical world is dark, there is darkness, and there is trouble, there is disturbance, there is disharmony in the world. Now, isn't that a symbol of your soul descending into the physical world and getting imprisoned in your body-mind life? It is so clear. Okay, so it's a symbol, very clearly a symbol. Okay. Now, if that is Krishna's symbol, then obviously, then the Christ also is a symbol, being born in the humblest of places. So it's a very interesting thing. But when your soul, which is essentially divine, okay, comes down and gets trapped and gets absolutely imprisoned in your body, mind, life, and what is the condition? darkness, density, ignorance. Okay, you are subjected to the body, mind, and life, which is absolutely ignorant and doing wrong things and having wrong ideas and wrong emotions. This is a symbol. So it's very interesting how the similarity is there. That raises interesting questions. Okay? Does it mean that Krishna was not a historical figure and Christ also was not? Because there are many people who doubt Christ. You know? In fact, Sri Aurobindo in the Thoughts and Aphorisms has a very interesting one when he says the four events which are doubted by historians are the most significant. You remember? I think Gitanjali will remember the thing. One is the birth of Christ. Okay. The other is Kurukshetra. Did it actually happen at all? And the other is the battle in Troy. Okay, the battle between the Greeks and the Trojans. And finally, this the colloquy at Kurukshetra. And all these, Sri Aurobindo says, whether they are historical or not is not so important, because the significance of that changed the course of history. Whether Christ actually existed or not is not a question. But what happened when Christianity spread all over? It humanized Europe. These are Sri Aurobindo's words. It humanized Europe. And Krishna also, the whole Vaishnava tradition started with Krishna. Okay, the worship of Krishna. So this is the important thing. Now, is it possible for a historical event to have symbolism? Just now I was thinking about it in the morning, and something very interesting struck me. Okay, what could be more historical as well as symbolic without, if you consider Savitri? Okay, Savitri is a record of Mother and Sri Aurobindo's life all through. You will see the connection between their life and the actual story. It's a symbol. Savitri is a symbol. And yet it is true. It reflects the reality in the physical world. So that's very possible to combine the two. The combination of the two, just now in the morning itself, it struck me in Savitri. Okay? Those lines which I think Anmol gave on the 29th of March. Okay, what Sri Aurobindo says. Okay? Just one second. I'll read out those lines to you from Savitri. Okay? Here. Okay. He says, Savitri, page 411. Mother and Sri Aurobindo met on the physical plane for the first time in today's date in 1914, 29th March. They met. And what is Sri Aurobindo saying in Savitri? The wedding of the eternal Lord and spouse took place again on earth in human forms. In a new act of the drama of the world, the united two began a greater age. Very clearly, there is a reference to Mother and Sri Aurobindo meeting. Okay? So, it's interesting. So, a historical event can be also symbolic. Okay? And that is exactly what Savitri is. That is also exactly what Christ's life is, and also Krishna's life. So, Tarika, you wanted me to tell you, and I have told you. Okay. So now think about whether you agree with me or not. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Isn't it interesting?
Yeah.
Yes. And also note that the descent of the divine in the physical world is exactly the symbol in Ramayana and also Mahabharata. Okay, what happens in Ramayana? Rama, who is divine, is banished into the forest. What does it mean? The divine has come down into the forest of the world, full of difficulties, full of darkness, full of unknown dangers. That's the same symbol. And he has to reclaim his kingdom. And in 14 years usually is a symbol of life imprisonment. In other words, it is the symbol of long period of struggle. Okay, that's what it means. So after 14 years, he has to reclaim his kingdom. And when you reclaim your kingdom, what happens? You have united yourself back with God again. Okay. So very clearly, it's a symbol. Ramayana also is a symbol. I can go more into details about the symbol because Sita. Okay. But first you go to Mahabharata. Okay. What happens to Mahabharata? The Pancha Pandavas, they lose their kingdom. And how? By gambling. Okay. So they are the princes. They are the Pandavas. They have a whole kingdom, and they get into a game of gambling, and they lose their kingdom. Okay, and these five are married to Draupadi. So now, what could be that? Normally, in the physical world, a woman may have two husbands or even three husbands. It's possible. Okay, the other thing also is possible. But how can you have five husbands? It doesn't happen in the physical world. So it's a symbol very clearly. So tell me, what is the symbol? Draupadi, if she is Prakriti, okay, Prakriti means Chit Shakti, the Prakriti, nature. Okay, what is nature wedded to? Nature is wedded to ether, air, fire, water, earth. These are the five elements, okay, from the subtlest to the grossest. So this is the symbol that Draupadi is wedded to the sand, that therefore she is Prakriti. Okay, this much is established. If Draupadi is Prakriti, what about Sita in the Ramayana? Okay, think about it. It's very interesting. What is the origin of your body, mind, and life? From where does it come? From where does your body come? From mud, from matter. Right? Agreed? Your
Yes.
body is made from matter.
Yeah.
Where is Sita being born?
From the
How
earth.
is
From the earth. From the
She
earth.
came out from the earth.
from the earth? So isn't that not a clear symbol? So she is Prakriti also. And when she dies, she also goes back into the earth. Okay. So this is again a very clear symbol. And yet again at the same time, Kurukshetra and the Pandavas and the Ayodhya and all these things are still very much there. They are in the physical world. So history and symbolism can go very well together. And in both, there is a parallel story. In the Mahabharata, the five princes have to get back their kingdom, and they do that by defeating the enemy. Who is the enemy? Just now we have seen in essays on the Gita. Your enemy is attachment, ego, and ignorance. These are the enemies that you have to conquer, and it takes a long time to conquer them. And once you conquer these enemies, you are again master of your own kingdom. You are Swarat, and you also can become Samrat. Okay, so very clearly these symbols are there. So Savitri also is a symbol, and yet it is reflecting the truths of the physical world in history, but in a very not very hidden, not very secret. You can clearly see. In fact, Satyavan, the experiences of Srirando are given in the king, not Satyavan. Okay, Satyavan is Srirando's life is split into two actually. The king, who is the king? Savitri's father. What's his name?
Ashwapati.
Ashwapati. Ashwapati is also interesting. The name. Ashwa is the
Horse.
horse, the force. Horse represents force. The cow represents light, always. Because in Sanskrit, the word gau can also go, can mean also cow, and also can mean light. So the Vedas have taken advantage of that. Okay? And so, Ashwapati, you are the Lord of force, you are omnipotent. And that's why all Sriranda's experiences are given to Ashwapati. Okay, enough of symbolism. You can ruminate on what I'll give you some of my ideas, okay? You can consider.
Rangada, Then in modern times, we are in the Kaurav of team, because we are disrobing the nature of the
Okay.
Draupadi.
Okay.
That's what I think.
But
We are not in the Pandavas.
it's not only in modern times, Pallu. It is there all through life. Even when the supermental world comes, a section of humanity will still be in the darkness. No? The whole range will remain. The Superman will remain, the human beings will remain, the animals will remain, the insects will remain, and earth also will remain. But there's an evolution which happens. And the divine is revealing himself in the darkness of the physical world. Okay. So what you said just now, modern times, you can take that for all truth at all times. It was like that. Even in the Vedic period, do you think that everybody was spiritual? No, they were not. There are so many who are very, very ignorant. Even today it's like that. There are so many yogis, not only in India, but even elsewhere. They are being born with definitely a superior consciousness. Okay, let's get back to our Kurukshetra. Okay. Just before reading, I'm telling you just a few notes that I made on top. Next 3 chapters are on force, violence, destruction, as opposed to ahimsa, non-violence. Okay? And in the volume 28, there is very interesting thing. Maybe next time I'll read out to you. Page 434 and 435. We'll discuss that. Violence and force is also an aspect of the divine. You must not think that only gentleness and kindness and sweetness and softness is only divine. No. The divine can also be full of power, glory, okay, majesty, mastery. All that is possible. So, normally we associate violence and destruction with something negative, but it need not be negative. Even when you are doing yoga, what are you destroying? You are destroying your ignorance, you are destroying your ego, you are destroying your darkness. So, destruction is a principle in life. Okay? So, the argument that ahimsa is the only truth is not right at all. To fight evil is often necessary. Violence is not only physical, but it has subtler forms also. Okay, enough of lecturing, and now let's start reading Kurukshetra. So, who has to read? Any one of you has to read. Decide quick and start. Pallavi.
Shall I read? Yes.
Yeah, I think so, because you don't come to the other class, life divine class. You don't come. So this one you read before we can proceed.
Before we can proceed, following in the large steps of the teacher of the Gita, to watch his tracing of the triune path of man, the path which is that of his will, heart, thought, raising themselves to the highest and into the being of that which is the supreme object of all action, love, and knowledge, we must consider once more the situation from which the Gita arises, but now in its largest bearings as a type of human life and even of all world existence. For although Arjun is himself concerned only with his own situation, his inner struggle and the law of action he must follow. Yet, as we have seen, the particular question he raises, in the manner in which he raises it, does really bring up the whole question of human life and action, that what the world is and why it is and how possibly it being what it is, life here in the world can be reconciled with life in the spirit. And all this deep and difficult matter, the teacher insists on resolving as the very foundation of his command to an action which must proceed from a new poise of being and by the light of a liberating knowledge.
Yeah. So very clearly he has said, and we'll try and identify the word that he's talking about. Before we can proceed, following in the large steps of the teacher of the Gita, to watch his tracing of the triune path of man. So, what is the triune path of man? Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga. And that is telling to watch his tracing of the path of man, the path which is that of his will. Karma Yoga, heart, Bhakti Yoga, thought, Jnana Yoga, raising themselves to the highest and into the being of that which is the supreme object of all action, love, knowledge. Action, again Karma Yoga, love, again Bhakti Yoga, knowledge, again Jnana Yoga. These are the three which the Gita is combining and synthesizing. We must consider once more the situation from which the Gita arises, but now in its largest bearings, as a type of human life and even of all world existence. Now, this is the speciality of the Gita, that the Gita is telling you how to live in the physical world with a divine consciousness. The other scripture, the most of the other scriptures, even in India, they do not tell you, they tell you mostly how to escape from the physical world. How you are a born sinner and you have to become a non-sinner, or how you are to escape the physical world. That is the, but here in Gita is exactly the opposite. What is the problem of life and how to deal with it? Okay, we must consider once more the situation. And so what is the value of human life and what are we to do with human life? And not only human life, but also world existence. When you're talking of world existence, this is Srimdo's idea, not only individual yoga, but even collective yoga. The evolution of the physical world to a next level of evolution. That's what is pointing out. Okay? And how? Through these three paths. But these three paths are in the Gita and they are the ones developed in India. But that doesn't mean to say that these are the only three paths. You remember our the Hindu Dharma, as enunciated by Ramakrishna, says that you can approach God through a million ways. God is not only through one gateway. You can go through 100,000 ways. All the doors are open for God. Okay? This was the message of Ramakrishna. Jatomat Tatopat. Any idea you have of God, you can approach Him through that idea. Okay? This is a very vast foundation that you don't need to restrict your approach to God through any way. You can approach God even through enmity. Okay? Because it's an interesting thought. When you are thinking of nobody, you are not thinking of your enemy, you are not connected to him. But when you are thinking of your enemy and thinking how to do, there is a connection between them. The very fact that you are thinking of your enemy, there is a connection. So the connection itself will fructify and give you the result. So that is the way. Okay, so I go to the next sentence. For although Arjuna is himself concerned only with his own situation, that means his individual, his inner struggle and law of action he must follow. What is the law of action he must follow? He's a Kshatriya and he must follow the dharma of the Kshatriya. Yet, as we have seen, the particular question he raises, in the manner in which he raises, it does really bring up the whole question of human life and action. Okay. What the world is and why it is and how possibly it being what it is, life here in the world can be reconciled with life in the spirit. This is the whole question of the Gita. So, how to live in the physical world yet have a divine consciousness. This is the basic thing. The others, as I told you just now, they don't think of that. Okay? There is how to escape from the ignorance and the stupidity and the falsehood and the perversions of the physical world. How to escape from it. But here, no, it's the other way around. Remain there and yet transform not only yourself, but transform also the world. That is Sri Aurobido's contribution. Transformation of world is Sri Aurobido's contribution. Transforming yourself individually, many yogis have done that and many systems also have done that. Okay. Jainism, Sikhism, all of them are telling you how to do it individually. But Sri Aurobido is here insisting on the collective also. So, I go to the next sentence. And all this deep and difficult matter the teacher insists on resolving as the very foundation of his command to an action which must proceed from a new poise of being by the light of a liberating knowledge. What is the problem of Arjuna? I am a Kshatriya and I have to fight for and the dharma of the Kshatriya is to fight for truth. But here I am being asked to kill everybody. Now, but they are my own cousins and they are my own family. How can I kill them? He is my own great grandfather. How can I kill him? Okay? So, Sri Krishna says you have to rise to another level of consciousness, new poise of being. Raise your consciousness from the moral standard to a spiritual standard. Then you will see that there is no contradiction in what I am telling you. You can continue to do the action in the physical world and you can do it even so-called immorally by killing people. That also is possible because the divine is not restricted only to your morality. He is much more than that. Okay? So this is the last sentence and all this deep and difficult matter. How to live in the physical world, how to live in falsehood and yet be free from falsehood. How to live in ignorance and yet be free from ignorance. That's the problem that Arjuna has to solve. How to remain in the physical world and engage in, I'm putting it very dramatically, and engage in murder and yet not be affected by it and doing the right thing. When you are murdering your enemy, you are doing the right thing. How is that possible? That is the Gita. Okay. So, and it has to be done how? By rising to another level of consciousness, new poise of being. And in that new poise of being, what happens? Your knowledge, moral knowledge, gets liberated into spiritual knowledge. You realize that your morality was limited. That's not the only way of seeing. I remind you that at every level, when you go upwards, you get more and more nearer to the real truth of things. Every time you go to another level, you are nearer to the truth. But the absolute truth is only at the highest level. Okay? That's the problem of the Kurukshetra. How to live in the physical world and yet have a divine consciousness. We read the next one. But what then is it?
I'll
So,
read. Shall I read?
yes, please do.
But what then is it that makes the difficulty for the man who has to take the world as it is and act in it and yet would live within the spiritual life? What is this aspect of existence which appalls his awakened mind and brings about what the title of the first chapter of the Gita calls significantly the yoga of the dejection of Arjuna? The dejection and discouragement felt by the human being when he is forced to face the spectacle of the universe as it really is with the veil of the ethical illusion, the illusion of self-righteousness torn from his eyes, before a higher reconciliation with himself is effected. It is that aspect which is figured outwardly in the carnage and massacre of Kurukshetra, and spiritually by the vision of the Lord of all things as time arising to devour and destroy the creatures whom it has made. This is the vision of the Lord of all existence as the universal creator, but also the universal destroyer, of whom the ancient scripture can say in a ruthless image. The sages and heroes are his food, and death is the spice of his banquet. It is one and the same truth, seen first indirectly and obscurely in the facts of life, and then directly and clearly in the soul's vision of that which manifests itself in life. The outward aspect is that of world existence and human existence preceding by struggle and slaughter. The inward aspect is that of the universal being fulfilling himself in a vast creation and a vast destruction. Life, a battle, and a field of death. This is Kurukshetra, God the terrible. And this is vision that Arjuna sees on the field of massacre.
Yeah. So this is going further and explaining how violence is also an aspect of the divine and destruction also is an aspect of the divine. And this destruction is very interesting. We'll have a look at that. Okay? But what then is it that makes the difficulty for the man who has to take the world as it is? The world is not going to change. You may change. The world will change only with the next step of evolution, but that's a a millennium. After every millennium, the world changes. The human being can change quite quickly. He can do it even in one life, but the world will change very slowly. Okay. But what then is that which makes it difficult for man who has to take the world as it is now? Okay, full of darkness, full of falsity, full of perversions as it is, and act in it, and yet would live within the spiritual life. The outward life, others will not realize that you are living a spiritual life, but you are living, you are inwardly, you are absolutely different. Somebody asked Srivendra that I want to write your biography, and Srivendra wrote, "Now, how do you know about my biography? My life has not been on the surface for men to see." Okay? It's a totally hidden thing. You see only my outward life. That's not the true thing at all. So, spiritual life, you have to live within the spiritual life. What is this aspect of existence which appalls? Right? Appalling is something which frightens the hell out of you. You feel disgusted and you are surprised beyond measure. His awakened mind and brings about what the title of the first chapter of the Gita calls significantly the yoga of the dejection of Arjuna. Arjuna sees that until now his dharma was Kurukshetra, Kshatriya. He is a Kshatriya. He has to stand up for the right and the noble. He has to protect the weak. He has to do what has to be done for protection and justice. But now suddenly his idea of justice seems to be absolutely negated. He has to kill his own people. And such a massacre, okay, how to do that? That's a dejection. He gets dejected. In fact, his dejection is very, very clear because in the Gita, the Gandiva, the bow, falls from his hand and his whole body starts trembling. Okay, there is a physical repulsion in him. Okay, and he is dejected and he says, "I will not fight." No, you see, I will not fight. Okay, so there is the dejection of fear. Now, this thing about the body trembling is very interesting because I saw once or twice, and you can see yourself also, if you're very disturbed, there's a sort of trembling that happens in the body. So it's not a small, insignificant detail. When you're highly disturbed, your body can actually have a trembling action, even physically. I've seen one man getting angry and his whole body was shaking. Okay, so it's a very significant. This is the action of the physical world on you. But your yoga tells you don't be affected at all. Not only inwardly, not only mentally, not only vitally, but even physically. Remain absolutely unconcerned and unaffected. So dejection and discouragement felt by the human being when he is forced to face the spectacle of the universe as it really is, with the veil of the ethical illusion. When you are in the moral condition, ethical illusion, it's an illusion. Your idea of right and wrong is all, from a higher point of view, it's an illusion. From the lower point of view, it's a great progress. From the animal to man, morality is an essential step upwards. But from the man to spiritual man, it's an illusion. Your idea of what is right and wrong is not correct at all. The illusion of self-righteousness torn from his eyes. Okay, I have to do the right thing. Actually, are you doing anything at all? You are not doing anything. The nature is doing through you. Okay. So, self-righteousness, I must do the right thing, is torn from his eyes before a higher reconciliation with himself is effected. How to do this is a question. It is that aspect which is figured outwardly in the carnage and massacre of Kurukshetra. Srivendra is purposely using the words carnage and massacre. He could have added the word murder also. Then it becomes very, very dramatic. Carnage and massacre of Kurukshetra. And spiritually, by the vision of the Lord of all things as time. We have to read it this way. the Lord of all things as time, because in the 12th chapter, the vision of Kala, the divine as Kala, destroying everything. Okay? In fact, it's a frightful image in that 12th chapter, where all the Kauravas are all going, everything stuck in the mouth of the divine, between his teeth. They are all getting stuck. That is the description in the Gita. So, he is the Lord of all things as time. Time is a great destroyer. Okay? And there cannot be an evolution without destruction. You have to destroy something, and then only you can build something new. And this is happening in the physical world all the time. Our ideas are destroyed and new ideas come. Our ignorance is gone and new ideas come. In every religion also you will see that. Even in the physical world, even in Pondicherry, all the old houses have been torn down and new ones are coming up. So destruction is an inherent part of existence. Don't think that it is something negative. That's exactly what it means. Spiritually, by the vision of the Lord of all things, as time arising to devour and destroy the creatures whom it has made. Now, we go further. This is the vision of the Lord of all existence as the universal creator, but also the universal destroyer, of whom the ancient scripture can say in a ruthless image, the sages and the heroes are his food, and death is the spice of his banquet. What a fantastic image. It's in the Katha Upanishad, section 1, section 2, verse 25. Okay. Yasya brahma cha kshatram cha ubhe bhavata odana. Okay. This is the the 25th verse. Okay. So this is the not only that the heroes and they are being eaten, but death is the spice of his banquet. Look at the image; it's fantastic. Okay. So the, it also raises the question of the destruction. Huh? There is and those who are very vociferously say that non-vegetarian food is very, very wrong. Okay, they should take 1 second to think about it. I mean, vegetarian food is fine. There is no problem with that. But to find fault with non-vegetarian food is not a very correct statement, because in the physical world there is a food chain. The higher is eating up the lower. All the time it's happening. Okay? Until finally at the highest level also, the sages and the heroes are his food, and death is the spice of his banquet. Every great man comes and is removed also. Any avatar has lived in the physical world forever? No. So that is what it means. Destruction is as inherent a part of existence as construction. Okay? Creation and destruction go hand in hand. And this again brings us to the idea of the dualities in the physical world. All the dualities are valid in their own way. Okay? And this is a very interesting question of dualities. The more you think about it, the more you will see how it is related to the one becoming the many. Okay? Dualities become essential in the physical world, truth and falsehood, okay, right and wrong, okay, hot and cold. All these things are all there in the physical world. To every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. Even the science also recognizes this fact. Okay. Now I go to the next sentence. It is one and the same truth, seen first indirectly and obscurely in the facts of life, and then directly and clearly in the soul's vision of that which manifests itself in life. So, first of all, you are seeing it in the physical world, there is creation, but there is also death. Okay? Everything that is born is created, but what is created must die. That's in the physical world. But spiritually also you will see that that's happening all the time. Okay? It's happening at the physical level, it's happening at the vital level, it's happening at the mental level, it's happening absolutely at the spiritual level. The divine comes down into the physical world and goes back again into the physical world. The cycle is there of creation and destruction. The outward aspect is that of world existence and human existence proceeding by struggle and slaughter. Evolution takes place by struggle and slaughter. The old has to be killed and the new has to be established. The inward aspect is that of a universal being fulfilling himself in a vast creation and a vast destruction. Both go together always. Life, a battle, and a field of death. This is Kurukshetra. Kurukshetra is symbolic of this. There is creation and there is also destruction. Because new cannot come without destruction. The old has to be destroyed and the new has to come. God the terrible. This is the vision that Arjuna sees on that field of massacre. Okay? That brings us to 832. So maybe we can just read one more para because we have about 7 minutes. No? Up to 8:40, we have 8 minutes. So we can read the next one. And it is related to, Sremda has written an article, Heraclitus. And who knows, perhaps he himself was Heraclitus because he says he was in ancient Greece. So it could be that he has written a whole book on Heraclitus and his philosophy. So let's quickly read the next one. War, says Heraclitus. Let's read.
Shall I read?
Yes, please.
War, said Heraclitus, is the father of all things. War is the king of all. And the saying, like most of the apothegms of the Greek thinker, suggests a profound truth. From a clash of material or other forces, everything in this world, if not the world, itself, seems to be born. By a struggle of forces, tendencies, principles, beings, it seems to proceed, ever creating new things, ever destroying the old, marching one knows not very well whither, to a final self-destruction, say some, in an unending series of vain cycles, say others. In progressive cycles is the most optimistic conclusion, leading through whatever trouble and apparent confusion towards a higher and higher approximation to some divine apocalypse. However, that may be, this is certain that there is not only no construction here without destruction, no harmony except by a poise of contending forces, one out of many actual and potential discords, but also no continued existence of life except by a constant self-feeding and devouring of other life. Our very bodily life is a constant dying and being reborn. The body itself, a beleaguered city attacked by assailing, protected by defending forces whose business is to devour each other. And this is only a type of all our existence. The command seems to have gone out from the beginning. Thou shalt not conquer except by battle with thy fellows and thy surroundings. Thou shalt not even live except by battle and struggle, and by absorbing into thyself other life. The first law of this world that I have made is creation and preservation by destruction.
Okay. I have not been able to find the reference to this last bit he has put in double quotes. So if anyone can find the reference to what he is saying, it will be very nice. But the other one, the dying and being reborn, there is a reference to, in the Taittiriya Upanishad, verse 22, okay, there is a Adyate Atti. The one who is eating is also eaten. The eater is eaten. So, this is the law of life. The higher is always eating the lower. This is the truth of the physical world. So, we must not. Yeah, tell me.
No, what did you say? Adyate?
Adyate Atti. Atti means eating, and Adyate means is eaten, passive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Adyate Atti with a avagraha in the middle. Adyate, avagraha, and atti. Okay, so that is the in the Taittiriya Upanishad. But that which is eating is also eaten. So this is the truth of Kurukshetra. So we must not get appalled by destruction. We must not get uh, uh, because in the physical world you can see that floods are there, okay, earthquakes are there, okay, forest fires are there, epidemics are there, okay, and if you see very carefully, all these things have a certain purpose, and there is a hidden meaning to all these things. War is there. And he says, very interesting, is it possible, this discussion is there in the life divine. Is it possible for man? Obviously, war is at our level not good at all because it destroys everything. All the civilizations get destroyed. So, is that good or bad? Certainly, it is not good in a certain sense. But the new cannot come without the old being destroyed. So, now the question is, how do we do that? Is it possible? So Sridhar says very interesting, it cannot be possible as man is today. War will be a fact in the physical world and you cannot avoid war unless you go to another spiritual level. All the human beings have to go to another level and all can't. So a group that will go to another level, war will not be a fact in that consciousness. Okay. In other words, if 100 people become supermen, in their community there can be no war. There will be total harmony. But in the physical world as it is, so Srirendra says something very interesting. He says, the debt to Rudra has to be paid before you can accept the law of Vishnu. Very interesting. He says this. This explains that you have to rise to another level. The Rudra is the destruction. So the debt to the lower ignorance, okay, that we have to get rid of. You cannot go to higher unless you get rid of your debts. Okay. So this is it. The debt to Rudra has to be paid before we can accept the law of Vishnu. So in other words, to think that war can be abolished in the physical world with an unchanged consciousness is foolish thinking. It cannot happen. War is bound to happen unless you go to another level of consciousness. So that brings us to the end of our 840, 839. So we stop.
How do you pronounce that apothemes?
Okay, that's interesting.
Epopkim.
Apothem. The PH is not pronounced and the G is also not pronounced. Okay? And that's English for you. The most illogical language. Apothem. Okay? Only the PH is not pronounced and the G also is not pronounced. Apothem.
Means maxim, concise maxim.
That's right. That's what it means. Okay? A concise, short maxim. An aphorism. Short, pithy saying. Okay? We stop here today.